How do you build and maintain a successful coaching business while transforming lives? Today's guest is Nick Dove, Action Coach Master Licensee for the Southern U.S. He will share key elements for building and maintaining lifelong relationships using love and happiness, while at the same time building wealth for his clients. Join us for a candid conversation and lots of takeaways. Nick Dove.
William.
Pleasure to have you. Let me ask you, what do you feel are the top 3 skills that make someone successful in franchising?
Great question, William. So I'm not sure that we can just go to the top 3, but we'll certainly try to. There are so many skills involved in having your own business that no one that hasn't been an entrepreneur before really thinks about too much. And every business opportunity that people take on requires different skill sets. So it's not just a matter of corporate versus entrepreneur. It's also a matter of industry and the people you're working with and so forth. So let's get to the heart of this. Basically, the Action Coach business model is a relationship business. It's all about relationships. If you're good at building relationships, you'll be great in a business like this. If you're not so good about relationships, you can maybe work really hard and try and improve in that area. But my advice to you would be, probably you want to be looking at different businesses that aren't really so much about relationship. I mean, maybe it's a website business where you're on IT all the time, or a banking business where you're with numbers all the time. Go do that, because that will be better for your skill set than this business. Now, related to relationship, I would add, there is a very important word which is unused in business. People are afraid of it. They run away from it. They don't like it, especially in corporate. The word is passion. And what we particularly look for is the ability for someone to relate to their passion and relate to my passion and to the passion of our clients. Because underlying all the metrics involved in business, everyone's got to make revenue, everyone's got to make profit, everyone's got to have team, head count, all the rest of it. If you don't have passion, you're going to find this business much harder for you than if you are open to the idea of allowing passion a major role in your day-to-day business life. And so I would highly commend including that in the skill of relationship, because at the end of the day, relationship I like to think of as, I'm going to use another word that a lot of people don't like to use in business, love. I tell all my franchise partners, if you love your clients, you will keep them for life. If you love what you're doing, it's not work. You get out of bed 6 a.m., 5 a.m., and it's not a chore. It's a delight. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that unusual edge that some people have and some people don't. But if you're leaning into it, we'll take you on as a candidate right away, and you'll probably love what you see. So that's the first skill. The second skill, it relates somewhat to it, and again, it's really the contrary to what you see in most businesses and most corporates: humility. Basically, when you are in corporate, you are taught to build up your ego. Ego is your best defense. Ego is what you're selling. And that's the way you climb the career ladder. I was surprised and delighted when I switched from corporate and found ActionCOACH that actually this is a world of self-respect and respect for others. And if you have trouble with that, if you like kicking people around, and if you like being the number one and getting your way and having egocentric conversations, you're going to have trouble in a business like this. So we're not looking for weak people, because sometimes people associate humility with weakness. But I'm much more of the opinion that humility is really a quality of extraordinary strength. And you really only have to see that when you look at the life, say, of Jesus Christ or Mother Teresa. And that's more the model that we're looking for in terms of the personality of the candidates. The third one, which I look for, is what I would call a loose, tight personality. And what I mean by that is that we're looking for people who are very principled, who have strong core values, who have demonstrated that in their life and in their past, and are really not willing to compromise on those things that are most important to them. But they're not obstinate and stubborn people. They're not people who won't shift. That's the loose part. That means they're flexible in the practical, tactical, transactional nature of the world. They will look to find solutions and look for workarounds and stand on their head if they have to, without giving up their core belief structure. And we find that people who are like that are a really good fit with us, because on the one hand, we have very strong core convictions, and we call those our 14 points of culture. And most people who are looking at ActionCOACH are attracted to that part of ActionCOACH. And that's the tight part of our culture. But at the same time, we're looking for team players, people who are willing to work with other people, to be flexible. We're a team of 1,000 people or more around the world, and those people are our friends and colleagues and family. And so we want that to be a key part of their personal makeup. So relationship, humility, loose, tight personality.
You mentioned briefly, even though you've been around for a while, a long time, you're one of the pioneers of an ActionCOACH family. But you mentioned the transition from corporate and a corporate mindset to a basically an entrepreneur world. How difficult or easy was that for you?
That's a really interesting one. And I would say, William, that's probably the most important thing for candidates who are kind of looking at jumping out of corporate, who are afraid of jumping out, who aren't sure, and who have spouses who aren't sure. So let's address that, because that is the key difference. It's a different life. It's a different world. There are certain things in corporate that people kind of love the regular paycheck. people love the idea that they have a home to go to, they have colleagues, they have bosses. People love the idea that they get a business card with a title, and that gives them a role in life. And people kind of love being able to socially say, I'm Mr. So-and-so, and I do this. And now it depends where you work too, but I had the fortune to be in two of the greatest corporations in the US. One was Procter & Gamble. I was in Procter & Gamble for 15 years. And the other was Seagram, the drinks company. I was there for 15 years. Quite different, both of them. That was deliberate on my part. But on the other hand, both great training companies. And both had that kind of aura of, oh yeah, I worked for this so-and-so, and everyone understood that. So I think, it's like the fear of losing that is a fear of losing your identity, because your identity gets really wound up with that. And I have to admit that in our case, it wasn't an option. It wasn't a choice. After 30 years, 15 in Procter, 15 in Seagram, the Seagram Corporation actually folded. It was a company that was still run by a dynasty, the Bronfman family. And they had given the reins of the company to the third generation. And by the way, people always tell you to beware of the third generation in dynastic businesses, because you now get the kid who likes to play rather than the serious business person. And ours was no different. We had Edgar Bronfman Jr., who actually fell in love with making movies and music and Hollywood. And so after 100 years of really serious work in the liquor business from his dad and granddad, he ventured out and spent a fortune buying up Universal Studios, Universal Music. He overextended the company, which is kind of hard to do with liquor because the margins are like 90%. And but he essentially ran out of money. So the company folded. Now, I tell you that because it just goes to show how life is unpredictable. And I think the challenge for a lot of people in corporate in those days, less so now, but in those days, was they had a certain level of predictability that they could count on, call it security. And people are afraid of losing that security. And that's part of the challenge of jumping out of corporate into a more entrepreneurial role. But my case is an example of how there is no security, even in companies as strong as Procter & Gamble, even in companies where you have a dynastic leadership, which I relied on to not fall prey to, all the mergers and acquisitions that keep going on with companies that don't have dynastic leaders. So I actually betted on the fact that Seagram would be a good company because it would always be there. And look how wrong I was. So there you go. Don't assume that staying in corporate is a secure option, because it ain't. And the challenge then is, again, your identity. We were living in Manhattan, working in the Seagram building. We had limos, and we had company paid for apartments and high expense accounts. We were in that old world, which has kind of more or less disappeared, of expats. because you might tell a slight accent, I'm actually a Brit, and my wife is a Mexican, and we have lived in about 12 different countries around the world, and we're very global in the way we think, and we were kind of shocked sitting in we were in a Trump Tower, that's where our apartment was, and looked at each other and said, well, I guess the corporate life is over. The Seagram expense account has gone. What are we left with? And wow, that is a cold shower. So basically, we were able to take stock and think in terms of, okay, let's do what we would normally do if this were a business situation. Let's look at our options. And if you approach this in a cold-blooded way, getting advice from people you know, but also people who are experts at these transitions, that's probably the best thing you can do. So don't do anything because you're afraid, your fear of losing security and all that stuff. That won't help you in the long run. Do take stock, and do get advice, and do create a strategic plan for yourself. Yeah, we spend years in corporate writing strategic plans right, left, and center for the company. How many people write a strategic plan for their own life? So I had very good advice back then, and I was in my early 50s. So that's like the traditional moment when you want to be late 40s, early 50s is when you want to be making that shift from corporate to entrepreneur. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But the basis of that move is to actually have a strategy plan for the second half of your life. The first half of your life is great if you're, if you've been good in corporate, you've done well, you've built up some reserves, but most of all, you've had spectacular training. Now it's more about getting a return on that training and starting to give back. So basically, what we did was we took that game plan and we said, okay, so if we're in our early 50s, our strat plan isn't from early 50s to early 60s. Our strat plan has to be from early 50s to early 90s. So what kind of occupation would take care of us over the same period of time post-corporate as in corporate? And that really gets you thinking differently.
Well, also because today, back in the old days of my grandparents and our parents, getting to the 65 and the gold watch, and that was the ultimate goal. And that has changed. Science has improved the quality of life and the length of your life. So today you can't just plan to use 65. You got to plan way beyond that.
Exactly right. And the other thing that I learned from friends of mine who had retired is that, like a lot of things, at first sight, it's not what it seems. People who retire and play golf all day get very bored, and they start looking around. What the hell can I do now? But because they get unplugged from the world of communication, which is accelerating every year, it's hard for them to get back on the train. So we said what we want is a business which will allow us to be profitable and valuable over that span of period, keeping us updated, keeping us engaged, keeping us thinking, because it will keep us young. It will keep us energetic. And if that's the case, we'll live longer. So it was kind of that approach that led us to businesses, for example, with intellectual property rather than physical businesses. And it was in that spirit that we started looking at professional service businesses. And, that's a very complicated market because the assets are the people. And so they're all different, even though they're in the same category. But at the end of the day, what we realized was that if we were going to be in a professional service business, we probably needed some additional support and structure, which we'd had in corporate and which we wouldn't have as an entrepreneur. And I had seen, again, a lot of my friends go out and hang their own shingle and be, Mr. Consultant or whatever. And that is not a good strategy because that's not a business model that builds momentum. On the contrary, you start great because you're using all your existing contacts. But after a year or two, you've run through your Rolodex and it's like, so who the hell do I call now? And you've got to get into some serious marketing. So it's really not advisable to go it alone, and that's why we ended up looking at franchises.
And having said that, what led you specifically to Action Coach and the business coaching sector?
Well, that's a great question, and it was part chance. What happened there is that having made the decision to look at franchising, we started looking at white collar franchising or light industry franchising. I mean, we did look at a printing franchise because my wife Arcelia had owned a printing company in Mexico and did great work there. And we could have thought of that. We could have thought of home decorating. We did think of that. Things we enjoyed doing, we thought of. But then what happened, we actually sought out a franchise broker. And the franchise broker gave us a list of options, which included Action Coach. And so we were introduced to Action Coach through a broker who had, a list of 12 options. And so but it wasn't really because of the broker. At the end of the day, all the broker is like a phone box that gives you options. What really made it for us was, again, relationship. So being British, we go back home to London most Christmases. We were living in Miami at the time. Why were we living in Miami? Because in New York, when Seagram folded, the first strategic step on our plan was, okay, where do you want to live? And we looked at each other and we said, okay, so there's not much more to it than this. It doesn't have to be a deep strategic plan. I looked at my wife and I said, on the count of three, we're both going to say where we want to live. 1, 2, 3. And we both said Miami, thank God. So we moved from New York to Miami. We had a broker in Miami. We started talking all this stuff. But then, completely separate from that conversation, we went home to the UK for Christmas. And we learned that, because we'd already made some early contacts with Action Coach, that there were 2 Australians who'd been sent to start up Europe. And they were in London and they were looking for people to help them start up. So we went and had a meeting with those 2 people who had been coaches in Australia. and were really the best kind of people to talk to at the time. Whenever you're looking at a franchise, you want to be talking to franchisees who've been there, done that. And we had a full day meeting with them. And it was actually my darling wife who, at the end of that day, said, "Okay, where are the contracts we're going to sign?" And I said, "What? Wait, we need time to think about it." She said, "No, it's clear as a bell. This is what we're going to do." So it resonated, I guess is the best way to say it. It had really the three things we talked about. It was all about relationship and passion. It 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 was a wonderful world of the opposite of corporate. I want to say humility, and maybe a better word is respect. Everyone in the action world is highly respectful of each other and of their clients. I've never heard anyone bad mouthing anyone. And this is remarkable because it was a breath of fresh air. In corporate, everyone's always trying to stab you in the back and talk bad about you, and even about the consumer. They have disrespect. In this world, we know if we don't respect our clients, we ain't going to have them for very long, right? So, I mean, it's a natural result of being in the coaching business, but it exists across the world that we respect each other and treat each other the way we wish we had been treated in corporate, but weren't.
You actually used the word family before early in the broadcast. I did.
Well, you're right. I mean, it feels like family, and that's why we've been here over 20 years. We've been extraordinarily happy. We've never regretted it for a single day. We have really found the strategic plan that we made is possible, that we've created a business where we can be active and enjoy it and get out of bed at 5 a.m. It's a learning business, because basically it's an education business. So we're always learning something new, keeping the, little gray cells, as Hercule Poirot would say, active. And we love our franchise partners, and we teach them to love their clients. And I think if you can find a business like this, the word I would kind of look at, if you're looking at this business, is transformation. You don't want a business that is transactional if you're in the second half of your life. Why? Because every month has 30 or 31 days. And at the end of every month, you wipe the slate clean and you've got to start over again and start making sales again. In this business, we have clients for life. So it's not transactional. And the reason we keep clients for life is that we are transforming them. We are a transformational agent who is teaching them because we believe that they have far more power than they believe in themselves. And we help them attain that. And it's more like being an Olympic coach than a consultant, that sort of thing.
You mentioned a bit ago how your transaction went in back in the UK, where your lovely wife Arcelia took the decision. Usually, when you're making this kind of switch from corporate or from a set situation to an entrepreneurial, fear is the one that plays, I think, one of the most factors. And it really does help to have your partner or your spouse's support when you're making that decision.
Oh, yes. It's essential. We won't award a franchise unless we have talked to the spouse, and further than that, the spouse is in full agreement with their partner that this is the right thing for them. And that serves two purposes. One, it helps us understand the partner better, because, we've had meetings with spouses who said, he's not going to be able to do that. So it's much better to get that understanding in discovery than later on when it's too late.
Before you take their money, yeah. And speaking of, how is it? You obviously complement each other, being business partners as well. Is it challenging to work with your spouse as a partner, or is it just something that's?
It depends on your relationship, and that's a great question, because it leads me to another aspect of being in a business like this. This is a transformational business, but it's not just transformational for the clients and our partners. It's transformational for us. So we have learned more in these 20 years than we did in the 30-year prior corporate life. And they were great teaching companies, as I said. So the real point here is that we learn about relationships, and we learn how to be better spouses, better fathers and mothers, better brothers and sisters. We are in the perfect model where you are making money but realizing the full potential of your own self in the process. Where can you get that? That is priceless. And so when the day comes, and I always ask our candidates to look at the day when they have finally passed on, what do they want people to be saying about them at their funeral? And here is an experience that will give you a wonderful funeral. And I mean that sincerely, because a lot of people don't like to talk about that stuff. But let me tell you, there's a big difference between having a wonderful funeral and a terrible funeral. And, whether you've gone or not, that hangs in the air. And what makes this, I think of kind of like the New Orleans funerals, everyone's happy, it's festive, and because you've had a huge impact on people's lives. You've provided incredible value. You've been a real human being. You've lived to your full potential. And I would be amiss if I didn't say that one of the things that always interested me about Action Coach from the very beginning is that it is actually teaching fundamental truths, universal truths, some of which look almost spiritual without being religious. And, that is a quality that the world very badly needs now, because even religion causes division. But these universal truths are the opposite. They are about harmony and love and respect. And that's really built into the fundamental principles of Action Coach and the intellectual property. Why? Because you make more money if you act that way. So we've learned that it's just good business to love your customers. And we can't believe it when we see corporations that screw their customers, mislead their customers, give them fake product or fake promotions, who say, talk to our customer service people, and then, you get on the phone and you wait for an hour or two, and you finally get someone from the other end of the world that doesn't even understand you. So it's just nuts that people disrespect their customers in this way. And Action Coach it's as strong as it is because it's fundamental. The fundamental truths that drive it are about validating and helping people reach their full potential, because then the business will reach its full potential.
And when you love your customers will definitely love you back.
Listen, the one key word for a company to be profitable and valuable and have good sales value. So listen up, everyone that wants to have a business that they intend selling eventually. Retention. If you can retain your clients, you have a stable revenue stream. If you have a stable revenue stream, the banks and the people who are looking at buying you will love you too. And so that's what this is all about. We have, clients for 20, 30 years. And basically, when we teach the process of how you acquire a client and how you coach them, you're also teaching them retention, because you're creating transformations for those clients that are just mind-stopping. This is the only business I've been in where not only is it permissible, but it's normal to see grown men cry. They're crying with passion. They're crying with gratitude. They're crying on the stage in front of 1,000 people because of what their coach did for them. And what can be better than that? This is just such an extraordinary, powerful, I want to use the word agency. We're just an agency for a greater good. And we do have a vision, which is about a greater good. It's world abundance through business re-education. And that's what we're all dedicated to. And if you do it enough, as we have now, it just becomes you. I mean, it's just natural. And you can probably tell that by the way I'm talking.
It's part of your legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly is. And it's also because it's who I am. It makes me happy. If there's one thing you want out of your living your life, it's happiness. That's what everyone's looking for. Now, how many people are going to find happiness in corporate? I would say no one. Not even the CEO. Because even though they may have a big bank account, usually their kids are heroin addicts and estranged from them. So if you want happiness, you have to do what feels authentic to you. And if you do what feels authentic to you and then have education around that so that you can grow it stronger, then you become supremely happy. And that's where I'm at with Arcelia. And we do it together. So it's a shared journey, a shared experience, which enriches the family too.
Nick Dove, it's a wonderful, wonderful afternoon with you. And boy, oh boy, a lot to take back from this interview. I really appreciate you joining us today.
William, I've loved it. And I love the way you said it's a wonderful, wonderful, I would say just it's a wonderful life. Someone made a movie like that.
Yes. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, my friend.
William, thank you. God bless you.
Same here.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today, and hope you have gained some valuable insights into the world of franchising. My name is William Lesante, and I would like to invite you to the next episode of the Franchise Coach podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share with your network. Also, click the link below to learn more about franchising with Action Coach. Thank you.